Okay, good evening, everybody. Happy Saturday being the 13th number. I don't know, Lucy. Hot, hot, hot. Chico's trying to stay cool. Laying on the couch now. He was wired up earlier. But, hi, Mom. High fire. Why it's not working? So, we got a late crowd again. Everybody's coming in after 7. We're going to start right on top of the hour. I'm going to try to get 3 hours. Tonight's the Knicks might be able to clinch their first title in 58. I hope my Phoenix Suns would win. They never won basketball yet. So that's going to be on late tonight. And tomorrow's big day. Got another copyright, Lucy. My last 3 shows, I had a copyright. I haven't got that many in a row in a long time. I'm not quite sure what time. I don't know, 3, 4, 5, or 6. I'm not quite sure what. Iran says we. All right, we got less than a minute to go here before we start up. We'll start with Q's second video came out again. We'll start off with him, and then I got Benny's video on UFO dump, and I got another cat lady too. Tim. All right. No second Billy Bean yet. We are going to go ahead and start up.
Doesn't deserve the human-grade ingredients in the Honest Kitchen dog food because
What's up? Welcome back to Out of the Darkness. I am Q. So I'm always concerned whenever I expose corruption on the right because so many of you guys get so angry with me. You guys love when I talk about the criminals on the left side of the aisle. But people get angry when I talk about the criminals on the right side of the aisle. I don't know why it matters. At the end of the day, criminals are criminals. I don't care. There's no such thing
Did
as
you
a
hear about
conservative
Kay's new fur
criminal.
baby? She got a dog.
They're just criminals wrapped up in conservative clothing. And I think those are the most dangerous type. Sometimes the enemies within your gates are the most dangerous criminals. They are the Trojan horse, if you will. But John Corwin just exposed himself as being one of the worst of the worst. So if you guys
I don't know if you were
remember,
here last night.
Trump
to get to
actually
talking about it.
endorsed a primary candidate, Ken Paxton, over John Corwin. Now, we know that these people have a strong disdain for Donald Trump. And so Corwin has said that he's going to ensure that Donald Trump has the most miserable 2 years of his presidency, as if by doing that, that's doing the best thing for America. These people never learn. The reason why he was primaried is because he exposed himself as not being for America first and foremost. And now he wants to prove it to everyone by saying he is going to take his newfound freedom outside of the Senate and he's going to oppose Donald Trump, and says that if Donald Trump loses the Senate and loses the House, that it's going to be the most bumpy, miserable 2 years of his life, as if Donald Trump has had an easy route over the last 8 years. As if Donald Trump, or I'm sorry, the last 11 years, as if they've made it easy on him on either side. He's been fighting both sides of the aisle his entire presidency. But I find it disingenuous that Corwin is talking about Donald Trump possibly losing the midterms. If we lose the midterms, it will not be because of Donald Trump. It will be because of spineless people like John Corwin, who refused to pass the Save America Act because they said no to voter ID. They said no to ensuring that only citizens could vote in our elections, securing our elections. And we've already seen this year what happens when we don't do that. The mail-in ballots just sunk the mayor's race out in LA. We saw a Republican candidate have a real chance, a real patriot had a real chance in LA. But then we saw the same old overnight, tons of ballots being dumped in. And for some reason, somehow, they all went to Democrats. The mail-in ballots counted days after the election. Where have we seen that before? But these are things that could have been avoided in federal elections if the Republicans would have simply said, we're going to do what we can to secure elections. But these people don't want secure elections. So now he's threatening the president, saying that all of the people, all of the Republicans who were primaried by Donald Trump are going to stand together to oppose Donald Trump from the outside. What do they expect to gain from this? Is the country going to be better as a result? Is the party going to become more conservative? What do they hope to gain? It was never about you. It was never about the American people. It was about control. There is no party anymore. There is no Republican and Democrat party opposing each other. It's become a uniparty. So it really has come down to those who are America first and those who are everybody else first, or their own self-interest first. And we have to battle against that. Guys, let me know what you guys think about this, because it really ticks me off to see people that were voted for by conservatives and now they threaten conservatives. Comment below. I'll see you guys next time.
Okay, so yeah, Maria, he took time off, Q, and he got his first two videos back today.
Victory is in my sight.
So the Pentagon released another tranche of UFO files yesterday, and they included some full-color floating orbs in the sky that were shape-shifting
Yeah, we had a video
dancing
on that
about
earlier.
the heavens. Many of them, none of them actually had any earthly explanation attached to them. It's like, I don't know what's going on here. I don't know. What is it exactly? It's a galactic, sun that is materializing in the sky and then shooting a bunch of small red spacecraft off of its surface directly here onto our planet, which is great. And sure, thank you, Pentagon. Makes me sleep well at night to know that there's a galactic empire that's invading us, and it's all on camera. Okay, I mean, again, like, what is there to be said about these things? There's no explanation. And there were plenty of videos released. You can go look at them for yourself here at the website. I'll show you right here, war.gov/UFO.
There you go.
And this is what you'll find. New tranche of UFO files, lots of videos. You can check them out for yourself. Some of them, they look like this. All right. Oh, okay. There are the red orbs.
We got a second bidding one that came 5 minutes ago. It's something about the military starting something. So we got another one after this one.
Invading. But what if I told you that that's not the most interesting alien content from this White House yesterday? And that, in fact, there's something else that's breaking the internet. Posted and then almost immediately removed. What the literal hell is this? It's a photo of President Trump doing a deal with illegal aliens. I don't know, man. Look at this. 13,000 reposts. 34 million views, 100,000 likes, 17,000 saves. This thing has gone thermonuclear viral. I'm not the only one who reported on it. Posted, then immediately removed.
Australia win today?
A photo of President Trump meeting with someone, something. What is it exactly? I don't know. Let's check the internet for their best theories. Does anybody have any more information on the lizard people that Donald Trump was meeting with at the White House? Well, these would be called Nordics, moron. Okay? Learn your alien species. These are the Nordic aliens. They're time travelers. Okay? They're the people who built the pyramids all over the Arctic. There's a reason why you can't explore the Arctic Circle.
JJ, I just looked at the time. It's 12 o'clock my time, or USA time. So it's not on yet. I sent you the thing from the ESPN. I put it on Telegram for you. I just sent it over to you.
Antarctica. Okay. Learn your lore. Check the comment. Check the chat every once in a while. Noob. Z is talking with the Nordic aliens too. This photo released on Reddit.
Yep.
There you go. Xi Jinping also speaking with these guys. Leaked photo of President Trump meeting with unknown figures is going viral. People try and figure out who they are. The redcoats are coming. Yeah, I'm not sure. Is it Scott Pressler's Halloween outfit? That was a bad one. Sorry. We are operating on dimensions libtards can't even comprehend. Who are these weird people that Donald Trump was meeting with at the White House today? This just set the left back 1,000 years. Why is Trump conducting meetings with the Elvish? Nobody knows. Okay. Trump is making a deal with House Targaryen, not in my 2026 bingo card. Trump is currently meeting with the
I might have played this one. You guys want to keep playing? Do you want me to continue playing this? I don't know if a lot of people saw this one or not. I think we played it already. There's a new one out. Just came out. I'll continue playing it. We got
The Argathian delegation
5 minutes.
to negotiate safe passage through Antarctica into Hyperborea. Okay, makes sense. Donald Trump caught negotiating details concerning releasing the UFO files with Nordic aliens. Oh my. Desperate to reach a deal with Tehran, Trump meets with Rivendel's elite intelligence officers. The elves agree to help, but only if he stops calling them the tall white guys with the gray hair. Trump meets with 3 Nephites ahead of the America 250 celebration. Some people are also bringing this meme to its logical conclusion.
This guitar might be from the future.
This is a 1/2 size carbon fiber travel acoustic guitar built for real life. Because it's carbon fiber, it's completely weatherproof and temperature resistant.
Or maybe not. I don't know.
Photo of Donald Trump was published, then deleted moments later without any official explanation. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and check let's go ahead and check the original viral post. What are people saying? What are the comments tied to the original viral post? Sometimes you got to meet with the Targaryens. Okay. They're doing it, huh? People are taking it very seriously. High definition pictures. These are delegates from Agathia. There you go. Okay. All right. It's gone worldwide. I'm just going to say that Hive says this is not AI. So is this AI? This says it's 0% AI generated. Strap right in. Nordic aliens are ascendant light beings that travel back in time to hybridize with humans so that they could harness viral, thus creating white people and securing their own future existence in the bootstrap paradox. Oh, okay. Then, well, thank you for that explanation. That makes perfect sense. I'll read that storybook to my children tonight. Trump is meeting with the Argathian delegate. I mean, listen, man, you think that this is something that's going to blow my mind? Nothing. We're going through a lot of stuff right now. Nothing's going to surprise me. If Trump was actually meeting with the Nordic alien species, I would be like, that makes sense. I mean, okay, it's Saturday, right? Of course. What else are you going to do on a Saturday? It's 2026. Trump currently meeting. Okay, well, there you go. Now they're doing a little dance. Oh, my. Uh-oh. Doing a little dance.
Pause. Nothing
Iran
yet.
says U.S. is secretly
No.
run by Nazi space aliens. Well, it's all real. Okay. It's the mythic Dawn. Okay. Had a long journey. Leave them alone. People are saying that the Nordics that build the pyramids in the Arctic. Trump's opening the portal to Agathia, and you're blackpilling? Okay, what is that? It keeps coming up. Agarthia is a legendary subterranean, I've pronounced it like 4 times differently, sorry, is a subterranean utopia described as esoteric writings, occultism, and fringe conspiracy theories. A vast kingdom hidden inside the hollow earth. Believers maintain it is populated by ancient, highly advanced civilization accessible via hidden portals across the globe. The modern myth of Agarthia is a fascinating blend of historical, esoteric, terrorism, pop culture, and sometimes extremist internet lore. Users ask, Grok, is this image real or AI generated? I want you to do a deep analysis. Grok says, hello, I analyzed this image in detail. Important, modern AI generates images that are almost indistinguishable from real ones, so there's no 100% sure way without metadata and forensic analysis. What I see, Trump is the center between 2 tall figures with long white hair, beards, ornate red tunics, look like elves or fantasy characters. The background columns indicate lighting don't fit naturally. A conclusion, it's very likely AI generated or deep edited when the post removed instantly reinforces that it's fake misinfo. It doesn't match any known real event. Do you have the original post or more data? And I can check better. So Grok's like, meh, maybe. Maybe Trump's meeting with the aliens. What do you think? Let me know in the comment section. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
I'm not sure if I played that one. It was Doug. I think it was Doug one that we had that on. So this is the second new one on Benny that just came out. Hey, thanks, JJ.
Lead is invisible.
We were able to predict with extreme accuracy that there was going to
Why
be
not?
a military operation in Iran by tracking the military platforms from the United States into the Iranian theater. And this is how you are able to absolve yourself of the fake news. You are able to cut directly to what is about to happen because they can't operate without the hardware. They can't operate without the platforms in the field. And now the White House has VIP support movements directly to Europe. C-17s are bringing VIP missions to Geneva, Switzerland. 5 C-17s have delivered various equipment to Geneva. You're seeing now major movement across the continent. Airplanes associated with the vice president's advance team are moving ahead of a potential Iranian memorandum of understanding signing, which we just found out this morning that the prime minister of Pakistan expects the deal to be finalized within 24 hours. So they're moving the planes, they're moving the equipment. This is what makes it different. This is what makes this moment different than the last saber rattling or peace deal banging on that has happened from the White House, that they're actually setting up the infrastructure to get the deal signed. They're actually moving the pieces together, and all of the people who are a part of this are saying the same thing on both sides. So here's the Prime Minister of Pakistan saying, we are closer to a peace deal than ever before, with finalization likely expected in the next 24 hours. Pakistan is preparing for the electronic signing of the peace deal immediately, followed by technical level talks next week. We'd like to thank the United States and the Islamic Republic of Iran for continuing commitment to the negotiations. And he tags the Iranian officials and the United States officials, including Donald Trump and J.D. Vance. Here's the foreign minister of Iran popping off on X and doing 3.3 million views, 7,000 reposts. The Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding has never been closer, he says. Never heard him talk like that. Pending his finalization, the media should refrain from entering speculation about its content. In line with our responsible and transparent approach, all details will be shared with the public in due course. And now President Trump is truthing what Sayed Abbas Argarachi has said here. So when was the last time that Trump shared an Iranian official's post without comment? So that's the comment, right? It's happening. Trump called Netanyahu and said, we are finalizing the Iran deal. This deal, it's a great deal, and it's time to end the war. Netanyahu didn't push back hard or argue much. He appeared to accept that he could not stop Trump from signing it. Panikins and retard right down bad. Netanyahu controls Trump. Netanyahu had hoped that the war could lead to regime change in Iran, but the rivals are now accusing him of making Israel a vassal state by going along with U.S. Uh-oh. Here it is. Trump's pending Iran deal is a bitter pill for Netanyahu. Whatever. I'm an American. I don't care about Iran. I don't care about Israel. I don't care about Ukraine. I don't care about Russia. I don't care about China. I care about all of them in the extent that they have, that the decisions that they make could affect the lives of my children and the homeland of which I have. I don't have another homeland. This is it. That's as much as I care. That's where my care ends, is like when you are negatively or positively affecting the only land I care about, which is America. J.D. Vance saying the same thing, right? I'm just so ready to get this done. Like Netanyahu can cry. Don't care. I'm seeing a lot of fake information about the potential deal of reopening the strait and Iran's nuclear weapons program. First, says JD, the Iranians are not receiving any cash. No funds are being released. Simply signing a deal or going to a meeting. The deal is structured to ensure that the U.S. and its allies are prioritized. The Islamic Republic of Iran meets its obligations. The deal has the potential to remake the region and lead to a lasting peace, which would be a massive win. A couple of bizarre things in the reporting the last few hours. First, people are rightly said that Donald Trump is a historic president a month ago, are criticizing the deal based on unconfirmed media reports. So he's going after the neocons here. People who rightly said Donald Trump was historic president a month ago when he went to war with Iran are now criticizing him. Second, the people who say you can't trust a word that is said by Iran apparently believe anonymously sourced social media posts. The president is going to get us a good outcome one way or another.
Here's how you can receive up to $35,000 a year for caring for a loved one. Do you help with things like bathing, dressing, or meals?
Says J.D. Vance, the adult in the room. Prime Minister, the guy who's been negotiating the deal, says peace is closer than ever and to expect it in the next 24 hours. So there you go. This published at 6:18 a.m. this morning. Trump says that they were leaked deal terms that were not true. Trump blasting them on social media. President Trump told me in a short call that he considered Iran's foreign minister's post very positive because he posted it on his Truth Social. Iran's foreign minister says peace with the United States has never been closer. They'd be really smart to just take the deal. You'd be really smart to just do it. Just get, like, what a historic opportunity that everybody has here to say, okay, enough, right? It's not good for Iran, obviously. The Ayatollah is dead. They have lost a ton in Iran. They really are they're sort of a very wounded animal waiting just on survival levels, right? This is not good for the Iranian people, of course. It is certainly not good for the American people, meaning that there's not a single person that's paying $5 a gallon for their filling up their F-150 for $250, being like, but it's for Iran. It's hard to sell that. It's very good. It'd be very good to sell a quick and lasting peace. And that's what they're selling here. So here we go. Senior administration officials shares the details of the deal. This is a very good deal. I think the president, as U.S., very good spot. We're not quite at finish line yet, but we are very close. Here we go. Here's what the deal has from the White House. It reopens the straits. It lifts the blockade. It leads to the dismantling of the Iranian nuclear program. It leads to the U.S. getting in the enriched material. Guarantees long-term peace in the region. Any reporting that the Iranians get as part of this agreement upon the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding is not true. They get nothing out of the signing of the MOU. They get rewarded economically for complying with their obligations under the deal. The benefits under the deal only come when they actually perform what they're supposed to perform. And so what are the benefits? They have billions of dollars that they want unfrozen, and they want their economy to be unsanctioned and their oil to be unsanctioned. If they were to do that, and if they were to become a cooperative members of the global economy,
under 2 minutes,
then that would be really huge for Iran. It'd be huge for the entire region, which I guess if you were to sell this war, lasting stability in that region and having intertwined and interconnected and peaceful nations operating peacefully with each other instead of in terroristic acts with each other would be extremely good for the entire global economy. So that's something that you can write home about, literally. So here we go. Foreign Minister. Islamabad has never, the Memorandum of Understanding has never been closer. And it will be signed next week. Signed next week. And as we have shown you, they're moving the actual planes to Switzerland to sign it. So call it clickbait. Call it whatever you want. I know that I've fallen hook, line, and sinker for some of these. We have a peace deal things because that's just the reporting. That's what the president said. It's the reporting out of the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and so on. And they've gone back and forth, ping pong ball, rubber room to this thing. And now I think the people probably both nations are very ready. I know, as a matter of fact, I am very ready for this peace deal to be done and to get rip-roaring back to what matters the very most, which is America first and this country. If you agree with that, like, share, and subscribe.
Okay, those are two big ones for opinion today. My next two I got, they're 2 minutes. One's really good.
Engines couldn't generate the thrust. They could. The F-22 Raptor, America's crown jewel of fifth-generation air dominance, can reach roughly Mach 2.25 under certain conditions. The F-35, optimized more for multi-role flexibility than raw speed, tops out closer to Mach 1.6. But here's the problem. Speed isn't just about thrust, it's about heat. As an aircraft pushes past Mach 2, the friction between air molecules and the skin of the jet generates intense aerodynamic heating. Temperatures on leading edges can climb into the hundreds of degrees Fahrenheit. At sustained high speeds, those temperatures begin to stress structural components and degrade radar-absorbent materials. And when engineers tried to outrun physics before, they paid for it. Look back at the MiG-25 Foxbat during the Cold War. It could sprint past Mach 3, but doing so would warp its engines and strain its structure. Its speed came at the cost of longevity and flexibility. It wasn't a stealth aircraft. It was a brute force interceptor. Then consider the SR-71 Blackbird. Capable of Mach 3.3, it was built almost entirely from titanium to survive the extreme heat generated by sustained high-speed flight. But the SR-71 wasn't a dogfighter. It wasn't carrying air-to-air missiles into contested airspace. It was a reconnaissance platform designed purely for speed and altitude. It didn't need to survive inside contested airspace. The F-47 does. Stealth fighters operate in a different world. They carry internal weapons. They depend on carefully shaped airframes that deflect radar waves. They rely on specialized coatings that absorb electromagnetic energy. Those coatings are often polymer-based and sensitive to heat, abrasion, and weathering. For decades, engineers faced a brutal choice: maximize stealth or maximize speed. Rarely both. At sustained supersonic velocities, traditional stealth coatings degrade. Afterburners necessary for prolonged high-speed flight in most fighters dump raw craft. Mach 2 has always been a practical upper boundary, not because
Okay, I thought that was good. Okay, I'm going to play a two-part video. Seattle news where Starfighter is from.
Exist elsewhere. And then the capital gains tax arrives on top of that. And then a surcharge, pushing the effective rate on the largest investment gains higher still. When outside analysts run the combined numbers on wage income and investment gains in Seattle, the figure they produce is the highest combined rate in the country. Not one of the highest. The highest. Texas, 0 state income tax, 0 capital gains tax, 0 corporate income tax. For a firm the size of Fisher Investments, that difference does not just add up. It compounds year after year. For most Washington residents, that capital gains tax applies narrowly. For a firm built around investment management, led by a founder whose net worth is directly tied to the performance of capital, that tax lands differently. It is not a theoretical concern. It is a direct cost of operating in Washington state. And it sits on top of a cost environment that has been accumulating changes pointing in one direction for years. This is not conjecture. Ken Fisher has said so, directly, immediately, and in public. The moment the court ruling comes down, Fisher Investments issues a statement. One sentence, framed as an acknowledgement of the court's wisdom and a recognition of whatever it might do next. That single sentence announces the firm is immediately relocating its headquarters from Washington state to Texas. Not a lengthy press release, not a carefully worded corporate response. One sentence, issued the same afternoon as the ruling, pointed directly at the court and the legislature that spent months arguing calling an income tax an excise tax made it constitutionally acceptable. Fisher's response puts the actual reasoning on record, not diplomatically framed, not filtered through a public relations team, not softened to preserve relationships with a political class he no longer needs to work around. He names it. And naming it is damaging to the narrative Washington's leadership has been trying to establish. Most founders who relocate do so quietly. They issue a statement, thank their former community, and move on. Ken Fisher does not do that. He goes on the record and explains his thinking out loud. He says it is not really about taxes. It is about law, about a state constitutional order that forbids income taxes, and a court that looks at an income tax, calls it something else, and lets it stand. What Fisher is really saying is that Washington changed the rules, that you cannot build a business around a set of legal guarantees and then watch your own state redefine those guarantees to reach your money. And when a state does that, the rational response is not to stay and hope. The rational response is to leave before they do it again. That argument, specific, constitutional, documented, cannot be dismissed as frustration. It is in the public record in a form that does not fade, because here is what Washington State does not want to have to say out loud. The capital gains tax is designed as a targeted measure on the very wealthy. And in raw numbers, it applies to a small percentage of Washington residents. But investment management firms, wealth management operations, and financial advisory companies are exactly the class of business where that tax calculates directly into the cost of doing business in Washington versus anywhere else. Washington does not have a tax that drives out restaurants or retail. It has a tax that calculates very specifically against high-revenue business activity. And Fisher Investments is the most visible example of what that calculation produces. There is a secondary effect that almost never enters the coverage of this story. Firms like Fisher Investments anchor an ecosystem: legal and accounting specialists, compliance consultants, financial services talent that clusters near major employers in the field. When a firm of this scale moves, it does not only take its own payroll, it changes the gravitational pull of the region for the entire sector. And the revenue data makes the point precisely. The capital gains tax brings in record collections in its first year, well above projections. The state celebrates. The following year, that number drops by more than half. High earners have adapted. They defer gains. They restructure. They leave. The time cost of...
Okay, this is part 2. It's where Starfire is from, people in Seattle.
People paying it. Texas understands this. Texas does not wait for an engraved invitation. Texas offers a different cost structure, a different regulatory posture, and a direct competitive proposal to make Plano a viable alternative. Fisher Investments moves, and Texas inherits the economic activity that Washington has chosen to make expensive. States that have built reputations as business-friendly destinations are actively recruiting every high-profile departure from higher-cost states, and they are moving with a speed and specificity that makes Washington's reactive official statements look exactly like what they are: responses, not plans. Now look at the size of what is transferring. $387 billion in assets under management does not mean $387 billion is leaving Washington's bank accounts. But the management of that capital, the 1,800 jobs, the corporate infrastructure, the local economic multiplier, all of it is now generating activity in Texas, not Washington. The employees who relocate have their local spending in Plano. The corporate headquarters, the lease payments, The vendor contracts, all in Texas. The next 1,000 employees the firm hires will be hired in Texas, not Washington. And the local businesses that had grown accustomed to serving one of Clark County's largest employers are now accounting for an absence rather than an anchor. And that compound effect is exactly what the official statements about this departure have never fully accounted for. Ken Fisher's public response to Seattle officials is not a parting shot. It is a founder with 40 years of institutional knowledge about what Washington State has offered and what it has chosen to change, explaining the specific mechanism of the decision to the people who have just tried to reframe it as something else. He is not emotional about it. He is specific. And specific is exactly what makes it so uncomfortable for Washington's political leadership to address. Officials can contextualize a grievance. They can wave at the people leaving and laugh. They cannot argue against a one-sentence press release, issued the same afternoon as the court ruling, citing a constitutional violation by name. A specific response demands a specific answer, and Washington's leadership has not provided one. Washington still has Amazon. It still has Microsoft. It still has a technology sector that spent 2 decades making Seattle one of the most economically powerful metro areas in the country. Those anchors are real, but the pattern of high-revenue businesses and high-earning individuals running the same calculation and reaching the same answer is also real. Fisher Investments is not a rounding error on that pattern. Jeff Bezos leaves Washington shortly after the capital gains tax takes effect, and upon establishing residency elsewhere, sells billions in Amazon shares with estimated tax savings in the hundreds of millions from that single move alone. Howard Schultz, who builds Starbucks in Seattle over more than 4 decades, announces his move to Miami the same day the millionaire tax passes the State House, the same day, and posts a message ending with a hope that Washington will remain a place for business. That is not a thank you note. That is a warning shot fired on the way out the door. Downtown Seattle's office vacancy rate has hit record levels, the worst of any major American city, worse than San Francisco, worse than Los Angeles. 1 in 3 downtown office floors sits empty. Amazon has been growing across the lake in Bellevue, where the tax burden is lower. The anchor tenants leave. The lunch crowd disappears. The tax base shrinks. And the proposed solution is more taxes on the businesses that have not left yet. The officials who characterize the departure as manageable and idiosyncratic are not wrong that Washington's economy will survive losing one firm. But Ken Fisher's response makes clear that the question was never whether Washington would survive. The question is whether Washington is paying attention to what is driving the decision, and whether it plans to do anything about it before the next one. The answer, so far, is visible in the policy trajectory, and that trajectory is...
So that's Seattle news for a few people we got in here. I got the next 2 are less than 2 minutes. And I got a 20-minute one I'm going to play.
Themselves and Panama. 6 nations are staying in Mexico. Mexico, South Africa, South Korea, Colombia, Uruguay, and Tunisia. But the crazy part is all other 40 national teams actually picked the United States as their home base. In the state of Washington, we have Belgium, Jordan, and Egypt. 7 teams are in California: Australia, Paraguay, Qatar, Austria, Switzerland, New Zealand, Turkey, Iran. And the U.S. in Orange County, Arizona. Texas has 4 nations: Sweden, the Czech Republic, Saudi Arabia, and DR Congo. In Kansas City, there is Argentina, the Netherlands, England, and Algeria. Florida also has 3 teams: Cabo Verde, Curacao, and Portugal. Uzbekistan and Georgia. Japan and Spain are in Tennessee, and there's 3 nations in North Carolina, Scotland, Norway, and Germany. Croatia are in Virginia, while Iraq are in West Virginia. Ecuador are in Columbus, Ohio. Côte d'Ivoire are based in Pennsylvania. New Jersey has 4 national teams: Haiti, Morocco, Senegal, and Brazil. Ghana are in Rhode Island, and finally France are in Massachusetts.
That was kind of cool, showing that they're all staying. You guys hear this news up from New York?
A drain in the patio after taking an unauthorized trek underground. Naveen Dhaliwal has this story from Nyack.
What started as an ordinary day for Hudson House restaurant owner Matt Hudson in Nyack quickly turned into something he never expected.
I was in the office when we heard kids chattering. Where is that coming from?
What he found was astonishing. Dozens of young girls climbing out of a drain where a creek runs under in the courtyard behind his restaurant.
So sure enough, we came back here into the patio, looked here, and it was filling up with kids. They were fine, but they were excitedly talking. They were happy to be getting out of here.
According to Mayor Joe Rand, the girls were part of a school trip visiting Nyack Memorial Park when they entered this massive drainage tunnel, which collects much of the village's stormwater runoff.
So they saw the culvert, they saw the cave, and they thought, let's go take a look, see what's there. And they started walking, and they just kept walking.
The mayor says the group traveled roughly half a mile through the dark culvert on rocks and uneven terrain before safely finding the exit at the restaurant.
Everybody was safe, and I'm so grateful for that. I'm grateful for the first responders. But it was dangerous. They shouldn't have been doing it because it's cloudy now. We could have gotten rain this afternoon, and if it rains, this thing gets much more powerful, and the water could have really picked up on them.
That was a big story. Now the 20-minute one on the one guy that does X report or with the glasses.
Of the conflict on their own ground.
Oh yeah, Maria.
Now let's talk about UFC Freedom 250. It's a major event taking place on the White House South Lawn. At first glance, a cage fight at the White House may seem like an odd addition to America's 250th anniversary celebrations, but in reality, it is a profound public ceremony that provides the legal mechanism for the full implementation of the new American order, the restoration of national sovereignty under the law of the land and God's jurisdiction. And before I continue, this piece was a public domain on another source that was sent to me that's circulating out there. And I'm going to go through this and just as some interesting talking points to get us to look at things from different perspectives, and then, of course, have our esteemed panel weigh in on this. Let me continue. To lawfully complete the shift under the law of land, the sovereigns of that land, the American people, must give their explicit consent. That is the purpose of UFC Freedom 250. Far more than a sporting event, it serves as the public ceremony required under Admiralty law rules, the people's visible endorsement of the transition into America's new order. The one-year process of restoring American sovereignty. The following shows the steps that have already been taken in the dismantling of Admiralty law. America recapturing its flag, June 14th, 2025. Flag Day celebrates the adoption of the American flag on June 14, 1777. It's the true symbol of land, jurisdiction, and national sovereignty. It was on this day in 2025 that America initiated the legal process of removing itself from British Admiralty jurisdiction in order to restore its sovereignty and the law of the land. America asked to return to God, April 18, 2026.
This might be
President Trump reads 2 Chronicles 7:11, 7:12 to the nation as an appeal to return to God in recognition of the original covenant of 1776, the Declaration of Independence, that places the nation under God's jurisdiction. Pardon me, folks. Royal visit as a witness, as you recall, recently, April 27th through April 30th this year, as the living trustee of the Admiralty-based system. The King and Queen serve as legally recognized eyewitnesses. Their presence functions as formal acknowledgement of America completing the required legal steps for sovereign independence. Meanwhile, Federal Reserve Chairman steps down May 15th, 2026. The Federal Reserve has played a central role in upholding the British Admiralty maritime law-based commercial system that powers the debt-based economy. By stepping down, it signals the shift back to American jurisdiction. The National Prayer of Dedication, May 17, 2026. This comes one full moon, a complete cycle, after the appeal to the nation to turn back to God. The National Jubilee of Prayer is the public act of redirecting America back to God, 2 Chronicles 7:14. It marks the withdrawal of consent from the 1871 commercial system that quietly gave jurisdiction back to the British maritime system and the restoration of the 1776 covenant. New Fed chairman sworn in again May 25th, Kevin Wash, sworn in under the law of the land, which was clearly signaled by the absence of the gold-fringed flag indicating Admiralty jurisdiction, and Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas administering that oath. Using the old system to end the old system. The transition touches every area of life, spiritual, legal, and economic. At its core is the replacement of the foreign-controlled Admiralty law-based legal and financial system that has long dominated this nation. The legal process that began on Flag Day, June 14, 2025, is now nearing completion. By dismantling this structure, America removes the foundation that protected corruption, debt slavery, and treasonous actors loyal to that system. Resistance from those who benefited from the arrangement is inevitable. The transition will involve a turbulent battle against a deeply entrenched system. The storm that will precede the people's new order. Though intense, this period will be swift and necessary to remove the remaining barriers to national sovereignty. While the national prayer of dedication was an essential step in establishing who the nation would place itself under, it was not the final legal trigger for America's new order. Under British Admiralty law, a shift of this magnitude still requires a visible public ritual that demonstrates the people's consent to participation and celebration. One of the oldest tools of the Admiralty system is now being used to secure that approval. Ordo ab chao, UFC Freedom 250 provides exactly that public spectacle, a high visibility event
13 minutes,
on the
guys.
White House lawn
13.
that fulfills the ritual requirement and completes the transition to the new American order. Ordo ab chao is the hidden motto of high-level Freemasonry. For those placed in positions of power under their god, Satan, whom they believe to be the true savior and illuminator, it is the blueprint for controlled transformation. Create chaos first, then offer a new order as the solution. This, of course, is Hegelian dialectic, classic problem-reaction solution. Their system is designed to engineer or exploit disruption through wars, financial crashes, moral collapses, social division, and fear. Once the people are terrified, confused, and desperate, the controllers step forward with their pre-planned, quote, solution. Their new systems of governance, their rules, their gods. However, because humans were created as powerful sovereigns of the physical realm, these systems cannot be lawfully imposed without the acquiescence of the governed. Their operating philosophy is simple: keep the masses ignorant, entertained, and emotionally invested in the spectacle, and they will unknowingly consent to the changes that follow. To obtain that permission, they stage public spectacles of visible, controlled chaos. When people cheer, participate, and become emotionally invested, their maritime law treats that participation as consent. According to their legal doctrine, ignorance of the law is no excuse. Well, once that consent is obtained, they can roll out the changes that follow. UFC Freedom 250 is using this very same tool, but this time against the enemy. The spectacle on the White House South Lawn is not directed against the American people. Instead, it is aimed at dismantling the British Admiralty system that has long exercised jurisdiction over America. Through public participation, the event secures visible support for the lawful transition to the new American order under the law of the land. Instead of using their tool to further bind the American people to their system, it is being used to bring that system to an end. The symbolism of UFC Freedom 250 is the dramatic event that creates a major spectacle. It is classic staged auto ab chaos, a highly visible event placed on the White House South Lawn, the center of American power. The two main events: main event lightweight title, Leah Topuria, undefeated foreign champion, versus Justin Gaethje, however you'd like to pronounce the gentleman's name, the American interim champion. Co-main heavyweight interim title, Alex Pereira, Brazilian, versus Cyril Gain, French, two foreign fighters. While the heavyweight division represents the foreign established powers battling for control, the lightweight division represents the common people. An American fighter in the main event on sovereign land symbolizes the American people entering the final stage of the conflict on their own ground.
9 minutes.
The octagon cage, where the fights take place, sits on the South Lawn, sovereign American land, not corporate territory. This is the same ground where the king and queen stood as legal witness only weeks earlier. A fight inside the cage becomes the perfect public ritual, visible, emotional chaos that the crowd can cheer for.
What do you guys think of this?
In this symbolic battle, the American crowd's loud support for the fighters goes far beyond enthusiasm. By pouring their energy into the American fighter on sovereign American soil, the people, whether aware or not, are symbolically choosing the new land-based American order over the foreign maritime system. Their cheers act as acquiescence, the people's approval of the transition and acceptance of the storm that accompanies it. The consent makes the shift out of the old system lawful. The remaining events related to America's restored sovereignty, several key events still remain in the process of restoring American sovereignty and completing the transition to the law of the land. The UFC Freedom 250 on Flag Day, June 14, 2026, exactly 1 year after June 14, 2025, when the legal process of removing Admiralty maritime law and restoring the law of the land began publicly, the American people will deliver their loud consent through ordo ab deo and sovereign land, on sovereign land. This allows for the transition that introduces the new system for we the people. G7, the G7 meeting, June 15th to June 17th, 2026. Immediately afterward, President Trump will present the American people's newly accepted new order, including the storm that follows to the G7 leaders. These leaders represent the main powers of that old system. In their legal and ritual rule book, a major international system cannot be dissolved in private. President Trump's presence delivers formal, in-person notice that America is exiting the old Admiralty system and activating the new land-based system. This forces their acknowledgement and prevents any future legal or ritual challenge. Trump's rally to end all rallies, June 24th, 2026. This serves as a victory lap that publicly celebrates the people's consent after formal notice has been given. Military bans will emphasize land-based authority, reinforcing the shift from maritime law to the land power. The performance of Nessun Dorma, None Shall Sleep, the famous dramatic aria from the Sum of All Fears film, was played during the mass execution of traitors and deep state figures. With the people's permission now granted for the necessary storm, the old system's protectors shall sleep no more, as justice proceeds and their protections are finally removed. The Great American State Fair, June 25th, 2026 to July 10th, 2026. This is a massive, joyous celebration, stretching from the Capitol of the Washington Monument to exhibits, pavilions, performances, and family events. The nation will publicly rejoice in the people's consent to end the old system, restore the law of the land, and return the nation to God's jurisdiction, the beginning of America's golden age. Independence Day, 250th anniversary, July 4th, 2026. July 4th, 1776, marked America's public declaration of independence from British rule and its placement under God's jurisdiction on the land. That independence was later quietly reversed through the 1871 Municipal Corporation of D.C., placing the nation back under British Admiralty law. On the 250th anniversary, America completes the lawful process of reversing that quiet reversal. This is not merely a celebration. It marks the symbolic and legal completion of the return to the original 1776 covenant and the full restoration of the law of the land under God's jurisdiction. Storm. The public ceremony is only the beginning. What follows is the storm, and the president has been posting in memes notices about storm. Some may question how it can be right to move forward without the people's full knowledge of these events. Why not simply tell everyone the truth? Americans already know what they need to know. They understand that the system is broken and corruption is rampant.
That's
what they don't understand is that their permission must still be obtained. Through the rituals of the very Admiralty law system, most are unaware even exists. Rather than trying to educate the entire nation on that hidden system, which many would dismiss as conspiracy theory or outright impossible, the president is using the enemy's own rules against it for the benefit of we the people he has been elected to serve, and serving he is. The storm begins when the existing system starts losing its legal and economic control. Yet the storm is more than their resistance. It is the process by which the new system displaces the old one. Those who built their wealth, influence, and power within the existing structure will suddenly find that the protections they relied upon are no longer there. The exit ramps are closed. Corruption will be exposed. Long protected bad actors will face accountability, which is what the American people are demanding. And the legal, financial, and institutional foundations of the old system will be dismantled and replaced with the new American order. This is the true meaning of ordo ab chao. The difference is that it's not being used to enslave the people. It's being used to dismantle the very structure that enslaved them. UFC Freedom 250 is therefore more than a mere sporting event. It serves as a symbolic movement and moment when the people give their approval to the transition and to the storm that accompanies it. Though intense, the storm will be swift as the enemy moves have already been anticipated in order to minimize its effects. This is not only for the benefit of the American people and economy, but for the world as a whole, all of humanity, as the consequences of such a transition will be felt far beyond America's borders. What follows is the dawning of a new era. America will begin healing under the law of the land, restored to its rightful place under God's jurisdiction. Other nations will soon follow. This, my friends, is order out of chaos, but for a free people under God.
That was another good one there from him. All right, moving right along. I got a new one, you guys, to let you know. 9 minutes. This one's 9. Oh. This one's 2 minutes. The next one will be 9.
Of seditious behavior punishable by death. Just to be clear, does the president want to execute members of Congress?
No. Let's be clear about what the president is responding to, because many in this room want to talk about the president's response, but not what brought the president to responding in this way. You have sitting members of the United States Congress who conspired together to orchestrate a video message to members of the United States military, to active duty service members, to members of the national security apparatus, encouraging them to defy the president's lawful orders. The sanctity of our military rests on the chain of command. And if that chain of command is broken, it can lead to people getting killed. It can lead to chaos. And that's what these members of Congress who swore an oath to abide by the Constitution are essentially encouraging. We have 1.3 active duty service members in this country. And if they hear this radical message from sitting members of Congress, that could inspire chaos and it could incite violence, and it certainly could disrupt the chain of command. These 3 members of Congress, I will also add, knew exactly what they were doing. You look at Alyssa Slotkin. She's a former member of the CIA. Mark Kelly was a captain in the U.S. Navy. Maggie Goodlander was a naval officer. And notably, she is also the wife of Joe Biden's national security former advisor, Jake Sullivan. And so these members knew what they were doing. They were leading into their credentials as former members of our military, as veterans, as former members of the national security apparatus to signal to people serving under this commander-in-chief, Donald Trump, that you can defy him and you can betray your oath of office. That is a very, very dangerous message, and it perhaps is punishable by law. I'm not a lawyer. I'll leave that to the Department of Justice and the Department of War to decide.
But the president has frequently, but Caroline, can I just follow up? The president and the vice president, for that matter, have accused the other side of encouraging political violence. Isn't that exactly what the president is doing when he says that members of Congress should be killed?
Why aren't you about what these members of Congress are doing to encourage and incite violence? They are literally saying to 1.3 million active duty service members not to defy the chain of command, not to follow lawful orders. Every single
can refuse an illegal order, which
but they're suggesting, Nancy, that the president has given illegal orders, which he has not. Every single order that is given to this United States military by this commander-in-chief and through this chain of command to the Secretary of War is lawful. And the courts have proven that. This administration has an unparalleled record at the Supreme Court because we are following the laws. We don't defy court orders. We do things by the books. And to suggest and encourage that active duty service members defy the chain of command is a very dangerous thing for sitting members of Congress to do. And they should be held accountable. And that's what the president wants to see.
This morning.
Okay, another good one from our press. I don't know if she's back from work, going to work or not. Okay, let me know on this one, you guys.
Was when a film crew from National Geographic came by. The rest of the time, which was most of the time, the scientists were studying something they called sky ice. This stuff was totally different. We were never allowed to go into the laboratory areas of the station because the labs had to be kept super clean, and they said it would mess up their work if they risked letting too many people in the lab. But one time, one of the researchers that I was friends with showed me a piece of sky ice. You couldn't touch the stuff with your bare hands because it was so cold. And it wasn't clear or white like normal ice. It was solid blue. He said that's why they call it sky ice, because it was the exact same color as the sky. We had to wear a thick, heavy going outside gloves to handle it. The stuff was so cold, it would instantly freeze your skin if you touched it. I don't remember what the temperature he said it was, but it was something like hundreds of degrees below zero, way colder than the normal ice that was outside. He had to carry it in a metal bottle that was kind of like a thermos. He let me play with the piece of it for a while. It felt lighter than a piece of normal ice of the same size, like it wasn't very heavy at all. It almost felt like you could throw it up in the air and it would just float back down. But I didn't try that. And it was also a little flexible when I tried to bend it. It didn't break like normal ice would. And even for a small piece, you could see through it. It was solid blue right from the surface. And here's the really weird part. It didn't melt into water. When it got warm,
What do you guys? Is this
because we
one
had
all
it
right?
inside, it just started to shrink. It got smaller and smaller, but my glove never got wet. And there was no water on the floor. The stuff just turned into thin air when it got warm and vaporized. He said that was the reason why they had to study the stuff right there in Antarctica. You couldn't take the sky ice back to America to study it because it was almost impossible to keep it cold enough during transit. And then they shared a verse right here where it says, "And above the firmament that was over their heads was the likeness of a throne, as the appearance of a sapphire stone. And upon the likeness of the throne was the likeness as the appearance of a man above upon it." And then we continue off where it says it would always vaporize into air, and you'd have nothing left when you got back to the U.S., he said. Russian scientists had discovered the same problem when they tried to take the ice back to Russia. So that was why they all had research stations in Antarctica. After maybe 15 minutes of handling the piece of sky ice, it was almost completely gone. Just a tiny little bit was left, and my glove was dry the whole time. I'd never seen anything like it before or since, and that's unusual because I've always had an interest in scientific things. I think that's even why I got selected to go to Antarctica, because a big part of the interview was about science and what I believed about things. So I really thought it was cool to see something I'd never heard of before. The whole time I was at McMurdo, I heard people talking about the wall, like that was a special place. It's pretty common to find ice walls and ice cliffs all over Antarctica. The whole place is ice, but it's all just normal white or clear ice. So I asked my friend where they get the sky ice from, and he said it comes from the wall. I don't remember exactly how he described it, but apparently there's a huge wall of sky ice in Antarctica. He said it was hundreds of miles inland from the coast. I never got to see it myself because I was only stationed to McMurdo. I didn't get to go out on expeditions. He said it was the biggest natural structure in the world. Imagine that. He said that in the 1960s, the U.S. Army had a plan to bore a tunnel into the wall, but they didn't have a boring machine that could handle the super cold temperatures, so they had a whole testing project in Greenland where they developed ice tunnels and invented new boring machines that could operate in super cold temperatures. So this was back when they were going into forming NASA and all the other things that were kind of strange, the Antarctic Treaty, around that time, pretty close to it. And he says, like they did this whole big thing in Greenland for just practice. So it was like they were practicing to bore into the sky ice. I'm not an expert on that, but that's just what he told me. Then once they had the new boring machine figured out, they brought it to the ice wall, or to the wall in Antarctica. He said that the machine bored a tunnel. I don't remember exactly, it was like 5 or 10 miles into the wall, but that they never broke through the other side of the wall, and that they still don't know how thick the wall is even to this day. and I'm probably not remembering this part correctly, but I think he said that at first the floor of the tunnel was solid rock, but after a mile or two in, the floor was sky ice, like it was sky ice underneath after a certain point, or something like that. And apparently the wall slowly builds itself back up. So it slowly builds itself back up after you cut it, because after a year or so, the tunnel had shrunk smaller all by itself, like a self-healing wound. It starts closing up. They had to leave the boring machine inside the wall because the tunnel shrunk too small to get it back out. And after a few decades, the tunnel was completely gone, like the part of the wall was solid again. He said that now the scientists were trying to use technology to figure out how thick the wall is. He said something about putting earthquake sensors all along the wall, and that somehow you could measure the signal from an earthquake to see how thick the wall is. But he kind of lost me on that part. I never really thought about any of that after I left. It was really weird stuff, but I didn't think it was a big deal at the time. But then a few weeks ago, I saw a map of the wall in Antarctica, except the map was all flat and crazy looking, and it showed the wall going all the way up over the whole Earth. So since then, I've been trying to learn more about the sky ice that I saw and the wall that I heard about, but I can't find anything at all. So now I'm really wondering if there could be a connection here. And that's how I found this group. So I hope that maybe some part of my experience will help someone figure something out. Well, thankful to that person. If they were telling the truth, that is some very interesting information given what we know surrounds us. We know that the firmament's not just made out of ice. It's something special. That could just be something near the foundation to prevent you from going all the way to it. The Father's design is very complex, and he has foreknowledge. He knows what mankind's going to try to do. Those little nuclear bombs they shot at the firmament was nothing to the firmament. They can't break it. They've tried. If they could, they would, but they can't. And this is just one of those stories that confirms a lot of what I had assumed would be going on. I always thought, man, if they are out there and they can go to it, they're probably trying to drill through it, and if they are, how have they not gotten through it already?
This is a
and that would
different
answer
one.
the question for
Something
you,
new here.
because it closes up as you go through it. But this was back in the 60s. There's no telling what they're trying now, mostly guarding it. I'm sure that's the biggest job they have, is keeping us from going there. And if you do go there, you can only go to certain places. It is tens of thousands of dollars for a one-way ticket. Otherwise, many of us would have already gone there, tried to do some sneaking around and investigating. But this video here, it only had like 300 views. But really cool stuff. Wanted to pass this along. I know the days of censorship have it to where you can't find stuff like this anymore. And I remember putting it in my firmament playlist. I just wasn't sure if you guys had heard about this and wanted to pass it along to you. Answers some questions that most of you, if you're like me, had about what's going on out there and what are some of the properties near the foundation of the firmament, if they're even close to it. Could go on like that for many, many miles. Who knows? We'll find out soon someday. The firmament itself will roll away like a scroll, but that second day of creation where he put this expanse for signs and for seasons and letting us know that he will return very soon. And it's one of those things that we're sensing is right around the corner due to the way things are going in the world and what they're trying to prepare us for and all the division. But they're preparing for a war. I'll go over that in a little while in another video, what they're preparing for and how you can be prepared yourself to not fall for the deceptions to come. But see you guys around soon. I know that this.
So yeah, I was looking at the headline on his front channel there, tunnels and stuff. So that was kind of interesting. So shout out to his channel there on the new one there. I'm going to play a couple short ones. You guys like this lady, don't you?
You are literally planting a seed with every word that you speak. So are you planting seeds of blessings over your life, or are you planting seeds of curses. The tongue has the power of life and death. But here's the best part. Those that love it will eat its fruit. See, our words carry supernatural weight. They are not neutral. They are literally seeds. So every word that you speak, everything that you profess is a seed planted in the soil of reality. And seeds only produce fruit after their own kind. So again, when you speak, are you careful to profess nothing but blessing, nothing but hope, nothing but life, nothing but God's promise, nothing but healing over your life that will eventually produce that fruit? Or are you professing limitations, doubt, negativity, cursing over your life that will eventually produce that fruit? When God created, he didn't just think good thoughts. He spoke, let there be, and creation obeyed. You and I, made in his image, filled with the Holy Spirit, carry a reflection of that authority. Hear me, your tongue is not just a muscle in your mouth. It is a weapon of spiritual warfare. It is a tool for either blessing or cursing. It is a planter of gardens, or it can be a destroyer of harvests. James 3:6 tells us that the tongue is a fire, that it is evil among parts of the body, and that it can set the entire course of one's life on fire. A small spark, y'all, from one careless word can burn down forests. Gossip, sarcasm, complaint, criticism, negativity, limitations, doubt. Those are all sparks from the literal pits of hell. Those are curses over your life that will eventually bear fruit. But the same tongue, surrendered to Christ, disciplined through the Holy Spirit, can become a fountain of life, speaking, professing blessings, hope, promises, encouragement, healing over your life that will eventually bear that fruit. And the cool part is neuroscience supports this. Neuroscience supports what the word has already revealed to us, that through confirmation bias and self-fulfilling prophecy, our words don't just describe reality, they literally shape it. See, what happens is when we speak words of doubt, words of limitation, words of insecurity, our brain will then seek out what confirms those beliefs, proving our words true. But at the same time, what it also does is it will ignore or diminish anything that opposes those beliefs. And what happens is this skewed perception of reality will literally shape our ideas. It shapes our thought processes. It will eventually influence our actions. It turns our thought processes into reality. We eventually will literally see the entire world and ourselves. You are shaping.
Okay, she does short ones, you guys. She does short ones. Okay, we got Auntie.
Possible for me to do. The devil clearly knows I'm onto something because it's making it very hard for me to share. First things first, guys, though, this is purely for entertainment purposes only, guys. You know, we're just goofing around, new boo goofing, having fun. Guys, what if that person who exposed that place, you know, that one, the boxer, yesterday, actually helped biblical prophecy unfold? Or at least helped us discern what this biblical prophecy is all about? One of the biggest quoted of the biblical prophecies in the Bible, the abomination of desolation. We all know what abomination means, but desolation. Let me get to this. A few months ago, I decided to go down a deep dive about spells and words and how you have to be very careful with what you say because your words have powers, hence spelling. We spell words. Did you know Balenciaga means ball is king? And Nickelodeon means I don't care about God? Anyways, as I was going through this, I was in a word translator and trying different words and seeing what they would come up with. And I love how God works. I love how God works. The Holy Spirit never lets you down. I put in Gucci to see, and it came out, there is an owl. Okay, now I'm intrigued. There is an owl. Now, owls have a very mystical meaning. I'm not a fan of owls. They're never been my favorites. Even though Andrea got me my hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil owls here as a joke, because owls just never been my thing. Anyways, guys, that night, I ended up in a deep dive that took me to a place I had never heard of this before, and this was months ago. I actually reached out to my friends Tara and Ryan that night because I was like, whoa. And I said, have you guys ever heard of this place, this Grove place? And she immediately responded, oh yeah. So I thought, okay, cool. This isn't something new. People know about this. I'm just late to the game. I don't even remember if I made the video or not, but I do remember this. I'm old. I go to bed pretty early. Not that night. Guys, it has been years since I have done a deep dive that's kept me up until 3 a.m. And that is exactly what this deep dive did to me that night. I couldn't go to bed. The things I was finding, the things I was reading, the things I was learning, it physically made me ill. Our world is run by some very powerful, elite, and sinister people who do very, very bad things. And we also know that they do very bad things to very sweet people. And that is all I'm going to say. And I'm going to tell you right now, that man is not lying. He is not lying. I have discernment of spirit, and I'm going to tell you right now, no man with children and a family is going to make up lies like that knows it is a very dangerous thing to say. Where him and his family could very well. He is not lying. Yesterday when the news broke, I almost fell to my knees, and it made me realize there is no such thing as coincidences, guys. I tell you that all the time. Everything happens for a reason. And this is the most perfect example. There is a reason I started to look at words, Balenciaga, and it took me to Gucci, that took me to there is an owl, that took me to this massive owl statue in the middle of nowhere, and the things that happen around it, and the people that are there. There's a very good reason, another very good reason why all of this lined up over the past few months. I have been extremely drawn to Revelation, the letters to the churches recently. Revelation 2:20. Notwithstanding, I have a few things against thee, because thou sufferest that a woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. To eat things. Y'all, we have not sacrificed things to God or gods in a very, very long time. At least not you and I. There's a whole sinister world out there that we are so separate from, praise God, that is about to come to light. But Auntie, what does this have to do with the abomination of desolation? We know what happens in this world. We've all woken up, and we know.
1717, girl.
We know. And my friends, that is exactly what this is, an abomination. Sacrificing to gods during rituals. Baphomet, Baal, a huge owl. It is the stuff that horror movies are made of. And my friends, it is the absolute definition of abomination. But desolation. That night during my deep dive, I stumbled upon something, and it didn't even dawn on me. Not until yesterday when I was going back through my phone from the months ago when I did the deep dive. And just like always, God's timing is always right. There was a reason I didn't think, oh, okay. And to be honest, that reason was this place has never been outed before or exposed. Not like it just was. Do you guys know the Bible references an owl in it, but not often? And do you know what
Okay, latest on Auntie. I'm going to play a 24, the Wire channel one. Their long report for the Saturday. Oh, Billy Bean yet.
Save hundreds of dollars on monthly
TikTok,
payments
that lady.
and don't need perfect credit to qualify.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to The Underground. This is the Until update for June 7th through the 13th, 2026. The spy summer continues on, and things are moving very quickly once again this week, so let's get right to it. Here at home, the situation remains much the same this week, with the impact of the Carmelo Anthony trial not being taken super well, and the resulting cascading effects of the verdict really enlightening a lot of people as to the level of hatred that is present throughout the situation. Like it or not, there is a lot of social tension that has been building for decades at this point, and as a result, the random stabbings and attacks that are taking place in Europe are also taking place here at home for much the same reasons. Speaking of our friends across the pond, this week all eyes have been focused on the rapidly deteriorating situation in Northern Ireland as mass unrest has broken out throughout Belfast after the attempted beheading of a man by a Sudanese national earlier this week. The subsequent riots have continued since that night, and after a few days of Irishmen burning down migrant housing projects, the migrant population throughout the United Kingdom at large are making moves of their own, with resistance beginning to build. On the ground in Northern Ireland, the Irish are engaging in what has been coined Belfast evictions, which in this case has mostly taken the form of migrant-run or inhabited HMOs or houses of multiple occupancy being targeted, which are being used by NGOs to house immigrants. Once again, the mapping situation here might be a little bit confusing to kind of understand, but when you look at the UK proper, you see a bunch of red diamonds. Well, most of these points are migrant housing projects. It just depends on where you're at. The ownership might be a little bit different. For instance, in the Republic of Ireland, all of the places down south in ROI proper, these are IPAS centers. And looking at the map, you might be a little bit misled by thinking, oh, well, there's fewer in Northern Ireland. There's not as much migrant situation going on up there. Well, no, it's just that there's no database for me to pull from because these are, again, mostly like nested within NGOs and places that are really hard to find. So again, from my perspective, this is an intelligence gap. I'm working on it, but rest assured, the local Irish know exactly where these places are located. And for the most part, the ethnic Irish in Northern Ireland and the ethnic British in Northern Ireland, they've pretty much had enough on both sides, and various paramilitary groups throughout the city are continuing to display their effectiveness in carrying out operations. Once again, Northern Ireland, very tenuous region on a regular Tuesday. Fire bombings are kind of like their national sport there, so it was no surprise that conflict kicked off in Belfast, especially with the brutality of the video that was circulating the internet earlier this week. So far, from what I can tell in terms of who's actually carrying out these operations, it's not as organized as you might think. I would say it's more coordinated, but not like top-down organized by like a hierarchy. So there's no like one group who's claiming to command all of these paramilitaries. There's no like rigid structure. A lot of it is just Irishmen doing what they know how to do best. Now, again, as far as the factions that are engaging in this, well, it's hard to figure out who they actually are because pretty much everybody is wearing black bloc clothing. Again, all black clothing, black balaclavas, sweatshirts, pants, all that kind of stuff. So over here in the United States, that generally means Antifa. In this case, in Northern Ireland, it does not mean that. So when you're looking at the videos as an American, do not think that these are Antifa. No, sirree, Bob. These are definitely not Antifa. There are random Antifa throughout Northern Ireland and ROI proper, and also in England, the UK. They're hugely pro-immigrant for obvious reasons, right? So Antifa throughout Northern Ireland have been completely vanished from the streets once the other two factions got involved. From my own research, much of the unrest has come from the Ulster loyalist side of the cities, these districts, which have historically been more Protestant. But I will also say that there are Catholic nationalist neighborhoods where there are a lot of HMOs being targeted and burned down, firebombed, right? So both sides are engaging in, I guess, what we should probably classify as, ironically, like separate but equal firebombings. They're just handling it in our neighborhoods to avoid, historic clashes and things like that. It's not as serious as it used to be back in the day in some areas, but in some areas it is. And it would be very, very optimistic to say that the Protestants and Catholics in Northern Ireland have put aside their differences over this issue. That is very clearly not happened, but a little bit of neutrality is definitely present throughout the city right now regarding the migrant issue, because this is less about factions and more about the whole of the population wanting these people out of their country. So the obvious statement that must be made, right, is that the longer this goes on, the higher chance there is for collateral damage. Of course, it goes without saying that generally speaking, riots and unrest are not really good for stability, and innocent people tend to get harmed in some way regardless. So that's always a concern. Fire is a very dangerous weapon, and it should be treated as such, most certainly. And you can't really predict what's going on here. Now, again, I would say that the rioters have most certainly not engaged in what I would call completely random violence. They are using violence, absolutely, for sure, but it's targeted. For instance, you haven't heard of anybody stabbed to death over this yet, have you? And to be honest, I'm quite surprised about that. I'm surprised there have not been people disappear over this, because things in Belfast, well, they're pretty hot right now. So anyway, that has not happened yet. Things may get ugly. It may get a lot more ugly. It probably will get a lot more ugly. And also, the longer this goes on, the higher chance there is for migrant factions to start fighting back. So these migrant hotels, they are protected structures, right? They've got police guarding them, so they can do whatever they want to on the inside. And if the migrants ever decide to organize themselves, then there might be a little bit of a situation. So right now, most of the violence is one-sided. I'm trying to map it out as best I can. It's pretty hard to do so, because most of the rioters have basically forbade any sort sort of media coverage of their actions. So OPSEC is very, very much in play in Belfast on both the Protestant and Catholic side. So again, I don't need to tell the Europeans this, but for the Americans, if you want to learn how to run an intelligence operation in your community, these guys know how to do it. Now, you may not agree with their means, their measures, or anything like that, but again, from an academic perspective, Northern Ireland is one of the top probably 5 histories of the world to study to understand how things can develop over time. So again, I'll just leave it at that. Northern Ireland is, of course, a bigger issue than I can mention in just one day, but yeah, very, very tenuous time, and it serves, again, as a good framework for the United States and what might happen here. Maybe not in terms of the rioting, but also what happened before it, right? Again, many people are looking at the TV, they're seeing buses and trains on fire, and what they're not seeing is all of the stuff that goes on behind the scenes when it comes to community awareness, community activism, all of the peaceful things that they tried before this, and then the incident that was the straw that broke the camel's back. Well, they were already set up to do this long ago. So again, you may not agree with their methods, but this is a very, very important academic subject to study, and we're watching history play out in real time, that is for sure. Same story across the sea up in Scotland. Adding to the public anger this week has been the complete vindication of the Dundee Axe girl up in Scotland, which has come about following the conviction of 2 Bulgarians who were at the center of the scandal last year. For those that don't remember the case, the general recap is this was a viral video that appears to show a very young girl threatening the person taking the video with a hatchet and a very large knife, telling them to leave her alone. And when this video hit the timeline, a lot of people demonized the girl, saying that she was some kind of hoodlum or gang member or something like that. It may be strange for an American audience to make that conclusion. I think many of us looked at that video from an American perspective and said, well, of course the person taking the video is the one that we should be looking into here. Most people throughout Scotland also thought the same thing, but there was also a lot of people who essentially said these girls were in the wrong. And this was not made any better by Police Scotland targeting these girls quite heavily up until it became quite clear as to what actually happened. So as it turned out, the person taking the video, claiming to be the victim, was actually the aggressor. These 2 individuals were convicted of targeting the girls, and just like it was stated in the video, the younger girl was actually beaten and assaulted by the Beloff siblings here. So what actually happened in this case? Well, it turns out these 2 were probably trying to snatch a child, and they were so confident in the 2-tier policing model that when they failed, they called the police themselves and claimed racism. These individuals knew, based on instinct alone, that if they attempted to commit a crime, and in this case they failed, the kids defended themselves with weapons, they could always call the police, and their would-be victim would be the one who gets in trouble. Does that sound familiar? It certainly should, because that's exactly what happened in the Nowak murder case down in Southampton, down in the south of England. So again, not super great. Scotland's got their own version of Henry Nowak. Again, these girls thankfully survived the encounter. They're probably going to catch weapons charges if they have not done so already. I think that was actually initially reported, but I don't know the status of it because, again, they're juveniles, so these records it's not as hard and fast as like a criminal adult record. So again, hopefully these girls are treated like the heroes that they are, because these 2 people were up to no good. Also, the other side of the coin that makes this especially worse, especially in the United Kingdom, is the fact that these 2 are of Romani ethnic descent, which is making the entire situation worse. This is because the Roma people, originally a nomadic ethnic tribe or clan from northern India, which kind of scattered throughout Europe in the 9th century, I believe. Anyway, this group of people, the Roma people, they're often referred to somewhat disparagingly, as in nearly always disparagingly, as gypsies. And they're generally not looked upon too favorably by most Europeans due to there being a long history of tension there. So just for we Americans, there's a lot more going on under the hood culturally with this one. And in this case, it's not exactly making those sentiments against gypsies in Europe any better. So Police Scotland, also immediately siding with them instead of the Scottish girls, has also not gone unnoticed. This being the default reaction is troubling beyond measure, and this is one of 1,000 similar cases, such as, again, the Henry Nowak murder, which has caused concern throughout the continent. So both of these cases highlight the seriousness of the 2-tier policing model, and also how it is routinely used by migrants to target locals, because they know that in every single police encounter that there is on the street, they're going to side with the migrants. They just know this. As if this was not enough, yesterday evening, another gruesome stabbing was conducted, this time down south in England. A foreign man with a knife walked up behind a young white girl and stabbed her in the neck in Burnley, just north of Manchester. And in this case, the video was also immediately leaked. So the assailant has not been identified by name just yet, but this attack has the potential to stoke the English up once again. Probably not to the level of Northern Ireland, but we have multiple different attacks which are in the minds of the British right now. Protests are still going on regarding the Henry Nowak murder. They're still holding demonstrations and memorials for him. And the anniversary of the Southport massacre is actually coming up at the end of next month. So again, there's a lot of these issues that are fresh in the British mind. So Western Europe has had a rather busy week. The knife attack in Belfast has resulted in large-scale demonstrations and riots. In Scotland, the vindication of the Dundee Axe girl has confirmed how slanted Police Scotland is on an institutional level. And the knife attacks on innocent and unsuspecting people has led to most ethnic Europeans looking over their shoulder a bit more deliberately in public this week. So that's what we've got going on in Western Europe for now. Hope you guys brought your stab vests, keep your head on a swivel, and stay frosty. Meanwhile, things in the Middle East are not going much better, despite the claims of imminent peace allegedly being right around the corner. So, let's have a brief recap of what's taken place on the battlefield this week. Last weekend, the war flared up again with dozens of ballistic missiles and drones being exchanged between Iran, the United States, Israel, Qatar, Bahrain, Jordan, and Kuwait. So far, every day this week, one of these parties has struck something. So, the United States has hit everything from the South Pars gas field to a dozen different military targets up and down the Iranian coastline, mostly centering around the major port of Bandar Abbas and the Strait of Hormuz. But there have been reports of strikes in Tehran. I just don't know what's actually been hit yet. I don't have a lot of fidelity on exactly what has been targeted just yet because I'm waiting on better satellite imagery, which has not arrived yet. But based on the United States claiming to use at least 49 Tomahawk missiles, the attacks at the beginning of the week were by no means small engagements. Just for a bit of context, the U.S. has used about 850 Tomahawk missiles so far during this war, so the use of about 50 on Sunday or Monday night was no small feat. On the rhetorical front, there has been a whole lot of talk this week, and in time-honored tradition at this point, nearly all of it turned out to be a load of malarkey. One of the biggest and very dubious claims that has been made is the alleged secret operation to smuggle 100 million barrels of oil out of the Persian Gulf. This allegedly took place since last month, but this figure possibly is a total of the past 3 months. It's hard to say. This all stems from President Trump revealing the operation during an Oval Office interview and also a post which confirmed it on Truth Social. This operation, which has not, the name of which has not been released, is alleged to have used secret means to sneak or smuggle ships through the Strait of Hormuz without the Iranians knowing about it. No further details have been provided on this, and that's the entire story as it's been disclosed and confirmed by the White House. Now then, there are obviously many problems with this story. For one, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense just logically because 100 million barrels of oil, that sounds like an awful lot, doesn't it? But it's actually only about 5 days worth of pre-war traffic. So if we just take the story at face value as the White House has authorized us to believe, the United States is using 2 aircraft carrier strike groups, 1 amphibious ready group, and the 82nd Airborne, which is still on station and flying combat air patrols, all to just get 5 days worth of oil over a period of 1 to 3 months. So again, it's not really a question of can it be done, it's a question of can you do it at scale and what is the cost of doing so? Well, in this case, we know the cost. We can tell the cost is 2 aircraft carriers, 1 ARG, 5 or 6 other Special Forces platforms, a good chunk of the 82nd Airborne, and that's the price for getting 5 days worth of oil. So logically, it's not a super great position to be in. Certainly nothing worth bragging about, that's for sure. But there's another series of problems as well. The math isn't mathing. We can actually see which ships transit the strait even with their transponders turned off. For those who are unaware, some of the largest corporations and well-funded organizations in the world are in the maritime shipping community. Corporate espionage and intelligence collection is big business, and some of these companies are investing a staggering amount of money to track their own ships, but also those of competitors. If you have ever tried to get an enterprise-level license for a website like Marine Traffic, you know how much money is in this ecosystem. In fact, there is so much vested interest in tracking the world of shipping that many firms don't even rely on AIS tracking. They're using synthetic aperture radar or SAR sensors on satellites to visually confirm marine traffic. What this means is that the world can see where ships are located even with their transponders turned off. Once again, the military situation is not as simple as simply a ship turning off their transponder and being invisible. It is simply impossible to hide in this region. And over the past 3.5 to 4 months of the war, there have been about 5 to 6 days all total where there is no SAR coverage of the region. Throughout this entire war in the Persian Gulf, at least, we've gotten really good coverage of synthetic aperture radar sensors over where the ships are located. And once again, the math isn't mathing. The people who have the access to these very expensive images have stated that they are not seeing any unaccounted for traffic. So basically, they're saying that, or there's the implication that this 100 million barrels of oil is just completely made up, like it never happened at all. Now, I personally cannot verify this myself because each one of these satellite images, believe it or not, each one of these images costs about $5,000 to $8,000 a piece, and they take images several times a day. So we have to kind of go on somebody else's word. Again, I don't like doing that, but I'm kind of having to tap into what's already been done by others here. And in this case, a lot of these people who are in this maritime shipping community are saying that it's just not adding up. 100 million barrels of oil unaccounted for. For one, it's got to go somewhere. So who is reporting getting 100 million barrels of oil out of the Persian Gulf over a period of 1 to 3 months? We don't really know the time period, so let's just say a month. 100 million barrels of oil in a month, well, that's going to be reflected somewhere. It's not like they just left the Persian Gulf and just vanished, right? It had to go somewhere. So where did it go? It's kind of hard to verify that 100 million barrel thing because 1 or 2 ships is absolutely possible. Maybe even a dozen ships shuttling back and forth short distances, or even traveling at flank speed to squeeze in between these satellite passes. Sure thing. Like, absolutely. I'm not saying that's not possible. I think that the U.S. has probably snuck out quite a bit of oil out of the Middle East. But what does that term quite a bit mean? Is this 1 super tanker a week? Or are we talking 10 super tankers an hour? We just need to know, right? It takes more than 24 hours to transit the strait for many of these larger vessels. So the length of time that it takes generally means that we're going to see them on each satellite pass. But again, giving the White House as much credence as possible, even though they probably don't deserve it, right, at this point, it's theoretically possible that smaller, faster boats could be blockade running to some degree. The issue here is, once again, scale. We should be seeing thousands of transits over a period of weeks to make up that 100 million barrel figure. And we're just not seeing it. So what is actually going on? Is this just completely fabricated from the ground up to calm the markets and make a lot of people very, very rich in the stock market? I don't know. But I can speculate, and I speculate that the U.S. is using 2 or 3 ships as temporary shuttles. And I think what they're doing is they make runs each night through the strait, eastbound, out of the Gulf, with incredibly heavy top cover in the form of Apache gunships, drones, F-16s, F-18s, surface drones, submarines, whatever. They're guided through the minefield, and once they make it out through the toughest part, once they get into the Gulf of Oman, they conduct ship-to-ship transfers. Tanker trackers have seen this already a couple of times over the past few months, and it doesn't take a genius to see what they're doing here. They're moving oil from one ship to another in a place where it's not normally conducted, which means that ship which is offloading is probably going to go right back through the strait, right? This is not really a secret operation, which is probably why the White House felt comfortable in leaking it, because you can't hide a tanker. Like, you're going to have to see it somewhere. Anyway, they don't go too far, so they just blip in and out of the strait because the Iranians are tracking these ships, at least with whatever radar they have. And of course, they have the corporate options as well, just like the rest of us do. So to the Iranians, it looks like normal regional traffic, but in reality, it's a grand shell game of moving crude from ship to ship to ship to ship so as to conceal the fact that oil is actually making its way out eventually through all these different shell transfers. This has been long suspected since the war began. And honestly, I put it in the back of my mind. I thought it was just a general baseline expectation for what the U.S. is doing, because it would make sense for the United States to try every single trick in the book to get as much oil out as possible. The problem is, once again, scale. It is simply not possible to take up the slack this way, so there's always going to be a deficit. In addition to the sneakery that has been confirmed to be used so far by the president himself saying this is what's been going on, I also think that something else has been going on too. I suspect that 100 million barrel figure comes from other ways as well. I think that it's total, and I don't think they want people to know where it came from. I personally think, again, this is speculation just based off of a gut feeling here, I think that the U.S. has been secretly paying the Iranian toll to get some ships out. Certainly not in all cases, but I think that since there has been deception confirmed throughout this entire affair, it would be foolish to think that the U.S. would not also play a bit of a shell game with the Iranians to get some oil out via third-party nation states. So what the Iranians think is a tanker of oil going to Singapore, actually it just meets up somewhere else and transfers that oil over, and that oil comes to the United States. But again, the problem of scale is the indisputable figure here. So let's quickly just break out the calculator and hopefully not get kicked out of the History Museum. petroleum and run through the numbers. Before the war, about 20 million barrels transited the strait every day outbound. The Saudi East-West pipeline can make up about 7 million barrels per day. So that brings us down to a deficit of 13 million barrels per day. The Emirati pipeline to Fujairah can do about 1 million barrels, so we're down to about 12 million. The U.S. Is also draining the Strategic Petroleum Reserve at an increasing rate. So all total over a period of 3 months or so, that might be maybe 1 million barrels per day spread out. It's hard to say. Plus this whole arrangement, since gas has gotten quite expensive, this becomes kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy to some degree because prices get high and many Americans can't travel during the peak travel season. So demand is sharply reduced, which might be another 1 million or 2 barrels per day that is not needed. And the Chinese have reduced their demand to an unknown amount too. So all in all, the deficit that exists has been reduced. So we're not really talking about a deficit of 20 million barrels. We're talking about a deficit of, I don't know, maybe 4 to 8.
It takes 90 seconds for this NASA-engineered AC cool down your room. It's smaller than a toaster, cools any room in 90 seconds, and uses just a fraction of the energy of a regular AC.
Million barrels of oil per day. There are people who can calculate this, but one wrench I can throw into the engine is that this is an unknown factor because some of these pipeline sources have been shut down for a considerable amount of time. For example, the Saudi East-West pipeline, which carries that coveted 7 million barrels of oil per day, well, guess what? It's been hit several times. It was targeted by Iran during the early days of the war, and it was only about a month after the conflict went into effect that it was actually started producing that 7 million barrels of oil per day. So the Saudis rushed that pipeline into operational status, so it hasn't been doing 7 million barrels since the war began, and of course that adds into the deficit, so that's why you can't really calculate these things. Same thing with the Emirati pipeline to Fujairah. Fujairah Oil Industry City has been hit like a dozen times so far, and you can't really tell me that that's not going to cause some issues, right? If you're looking at an oil tank burning in Fujairah, well, I don't think we're going to be exporting that oil if it's on fire, so generally speaking, it's really hard to calculate these sorts of things. Nobody really knows the true number of what is the deficit, which really just compounds the whole problem with the war, doesn't it? No belligerent is interested in telling the truth regarding the war, which is understandable to some degree. Like OPSEC, military operations, totally understand that. You may disagree with it in many cases, that's fine, but you have to understand that that's kind of the way that it works in warfare sometimes. I'm not expecting the Pentagon to be completely and totally honest about, a shoot-down incident or some kind of targeting effort that was successful. That's fine. What really is kind of grinding gears here is that they're lying about things that we can easily tell that they're lying about. In the short term, this is really just kind of the state of things, I guess. It doesn't really matter if you're not telling the truth anymore in the short term. I would still argue, though, in the long term, however, this cannot be the way things remain forever. This will become even more paramount as the talk of a potential ground operation has returned. So that's still on the menu. Yesterday, President Trump directly stated that the United States will seize Karg Island soon. Now, many people, I would think probably most people at this point, think that this is probably just a negotiating tactic. It could be. This could be interpreted as, its face value as the truth, or it could be a flat-out lie for negotiating purposes, or it could be intentional misdirection for any number of reasons. Maybe he's trying to get the Iranians to think that we're going to take Karg Island and really we're going to hit them somewhere else. I don't know. Either way, I do know that the pundits that are in the president's circle have been begging for a ground invasion for weeks, and it has almost come to fruition a couple of times so far. So, as discussed ad nauseum for months, Karg Island would be one of the worst possible places to conduct an amphibious operation, but the warfare manuals have long been thrown out the window so far during this conflict, so there's no real telling what might happen. So, at the end of week 15 of this war, we're not really any closer to the situation being resolved, which should come at no surprise despite all of the rhetoric that's been flying around. Hopefully, some sort of progress is made tomorrow, as has been claimed, but we'll just have to wait and see. The possibilities are quite literally equal and opposites, right? Either we're going to start bombing again tomorrow, or we're actually going to have a document signed and start moving towards the road to peace. It could go either way, and it's mostly 50-50 at this point. So we're just going to have to wait and see and hope that everything works out for the better. So thankfully, that's all I have for today. So let's go ahead.
That's a big report there from our Wire channel. That's an important one. So we got a little bit more time. I want to see how many short clips I can get. And we got one more cat lady video. It will be the first one. Well, the first short one.
everybody and everybody's at each other's throats and we're all racist. I'm going to throw a little fire or a little gasoline on the fire. And this is my experience. So you can say what you want to say. I'm just telling you what my experience is. Right now down here where I'm at, nobody's acting like they're going to whip anybody's ass. Nobody's shoving nobody. We're all acting like everything is fine. Everybody's getting along like we normally do. But I'm going to tell you something, and I'm going to say something that's going to piss a lot of you off, but it's the truth. Find me a white delivery driver that delivers groceries, and I will show you a tired, fatigued fucking person, okay? This is my experience. Before you say something smart, I don't give a shit. It's the truth. So there are certain areas in every city and every town that you know are bad areas. You know, when you go to deliver there, first of all, you got to keep one hand on your pew and the rest of the hand's trying to drag the groceries up to the door. The whole time, you got to keep an eye on your vehicle. Take your keys with you so it don't get carjacked and you don't get knocked in the head and drug up under the concrete bridge over here, right? I know these areas, so 9 times out of 10, I don't take those. Also, they don't tip. But what pisses you off is sometimes, you know, like if they're half a mile from the store, I'm like, you know what? Let me just go and get it out of the way. It's an extra $12, $13. It's going to take me 20 minutes to shop it. It's okay. Let me run and do it. So what pisses you off is you go in the store and you get there, all this meat, lots of meat, and cheese, and you get the Hawaiian punch or Hawaiian. It's always the blue Hawaiian juice. I say what you want to say. I'm telling you what my experience is. And you get all this stuff, and it's a pretty big amount of stuff, right? You shop for it, you measure everything up, you bag it up, you go drag it to the house, and you're fearing for your life the whole damn time you're there. You get out, and they come to the door. And when they open the door, in about 2 seconds, you are as high as a kite because the marijuana smoke billows. I'm talking about billows, rolls out into the hallway of wherever you are at. And they don't tip you. So they have the money to buy this. They're living in a subsidized apartment with subsidized power or free power. They just bought these groceries on their EBT card, but they can't even throw you $1. Then they come to the door and they want you to stand there because they want to go through the bag and make sure you didn't take nothing. So what I say now is, no, ma'am, I'm not standing here. You can count that stuff. And if something's missing, you can contact the store. I shopped it. I guarantee you nothing's missing. So just recently I go to deliver an order and she orders 2 cases of water and lives upstairs and no tip. Well, I took it because I'm a dumbass. So I'm going up the stairs carrying a case of water, okay? And I've got 2 of her bags under one arm on my wrist, and I'm carrying the case of water, huffing and puffing up these damn stairs. So when I get there, she comes screeching out her door, opens the door, of course, the marijuana billows out. She looks at me and she goes, I had 2 cases of water. I had 2 cases of water. I said, yes, ma'am. I can't carry 2 cases of water up the stairs at one time. How about she gonna call Walmart and complain on me and say that I was rude and nasty to her? So when I got through explaining it, it was no big deal. But I'm like, or the other night I go to deliver an order, I shopped it, it was one item. Yeah, I shopped the one item. I go to the Walmart, I go in the store, I get the one item. I go drop it off her house, take a picture of it. How about she calls Walmart and tells them she didn't get her order? Why? Because to fuss and show your ass enough, you get a refund. So anyway, that's what it is. And I know I'm going to get a lot of these little nasty ass little messages, but what can you say? What can you say to me when I'm telling you my experience? Okay. It is my experience. I'll come on here later and tell you experiences, which I already have, with white men that are in their 70s that open up their robe when you're walking up the door. But today, this experience is what I wanted to share. Since we're all...
Okay. She only had a couple today. Oh, there a lady on TikTok?
Officials are absolutely scrambling to save face after their own state media got caught fabricating a fake peace deal to fool the press. Wait until you see how the White House just torched it. Plus, a total boss move in Los Angeles. The Trump administration just pulled the plug on a multi-billion-dollar progressive gravy train after a massive voter fraud scheme exploded right on Skid Row. And later, a leaked 2028 Democratic ticket that will both shock you and completely terrify you all at the same time. Hair gel and high-stakes family drama, anybody? We've got a packed show for you today. Hit that like button for me, share it with your family and friends, and make sure to subscribe if you're new so you never miss the day's top headlines. Now, before we dive into all that, I thought we'd start Friday with a little fun fact of me, since we're all getting to know each other a little better. And a lot of you are commenting on the sports highlights I did in yesterday's video for the congressional baseball team. And I actually meant to share this with you yesterday, but it completely escaped my brain when I went to do the show. But I actually got my start in television as a sports reporter. My first on-air job was to cover high school sports, and then my duties were quickly expanded to cover the Chargers and Padres. So much fun. Great time in my life. Take a look at the ball. If you're a baseball lover, you might remember the Padres powerhouse former closing pitcher, Heath Bell. This is me chatting with him on opening day back in 2010. He was every bit as entertaining off the field as he was on it. And for my football fans, covering the Chargers was an absolute blast. Former All-Pro kicker Nate Kading, he thought it was a good idea to teach me how to try and boot a football through the uprights. As you can see, it didn't go well. And yes, before anybody asks, I am barefoot. The alternative was attempting a field goal in high heels that night, and even I knew that wasn't going to end well. I also spent time doing some charity fundraisers with our safety, Eric Weddle, nicest guy, great family too. And then just before he exploded into a massive national superstar, I scored an exclusive sit-down interview with former NFL MVP and Carolina Panthers quarterback Cam Newton right around his draft days. Oh, I miss those days. It was so much fun. And let's just say I could spill some serious locker room secrets from that era, but we're going to have to save that for another show. Just thought it would be fun for you all to get to know me a little better since we are spending more and more time together each and every week, which I am so grateful for. Okay, enough of that. Back to the news. Let's begin with breaking stories coming out of Iran.
There's more international whiplash right now over the Iran war, just hours after saying an agreement has been struck and the conflict is over. We're now learning of new hostilities. A U.S. defense official tells CNN that the U.S. military shot down 2 Iranian attack drones that were targeting vessels in the Strait of Hormuz just last night.
At this point, Iran launching attacks near one of the world's most critical shipping lanes has become almost routine. But what happened next may be even more outrageous. As Americans were waking up this morning, Iranian state media began pushing its own version of a peace deal, a version where Tehran somehow walks away with everything it wanted. Their version of a peace deal pretty much read like a progressive dream letter to Santa. They're claiming the U.S. is about to lift all sanctions, withdraw every single American troop from the region, and hand over billions in frozen Iranian cash. Well, the president caught wind of this fan fiction coming out of Tehran, and he completely torched it on Truth Social this morning. He wrote, quote, "The terms that Iran leaked out to the fake news have nothing to do with the terms that we agreed to in writing. What they said, including their weak and pathetic global stage and decided to suit up like the Avengers. Last night, the president set the table for a massive high-stakes stealth operation in the Middle East that has Tehran completely blind this morning. And Scott Bessent, he just pulled off the ultimate boss move, backing Iran into the smallest possible corner. Wait until you see how he turned the tables on the Islamic regime's wallet. It is absolute financial genius, and it got him to the table this morning in a hurry. But Bessent isn't the only guy earning an MVP title today. Did you see Missouri Senator Eric Schmidt's unbelievable full extension diving catch at last night's congressional baseball game? We've got the incredible highlights, plus the absolute lowlights from the Democrat squad, who, just like in Washington, talked a big game, but when it actually came down to execution, it was a total blowout. And finally, late night host Jimmy Kimmel once again takes his elite out-of-touch comedy to a humiliating new low. He actually rented and decorated a U-Haul for Spencer Pratt to move out of LA with. But the reality check response from Pratt hit so hard, it completely deflated Jimmy's entire monologue. Boy, do we have a massive show for you today. But before we dive into all the fireworks, we just launched our brand new exclusive coffee mug designs to celebrate our country's big 250th birthday. Quick little preview. We have this one, says, "Brewed strong, raised right." These are good weighted mugs. I like the heaviness of it. We also have this one with President Trump on there, celebrating 250 years. Love this one. And for those that want something maybe a little more simple, we have 250 years with the American flag. So you can always check out these mugs at our store. The link is down below. We are beyond grateful for all of you who have supported us so far, whether that's grabbing merch, sending a super thanks, or just watching, liking, and commenting. It all helps this community, and we don't take it for granted. So thank you. All right, let's dive in. The clock has officially run out for the radical regime in Iran. 47 has officially run out of patience and gave Tehran one final ultimatum. Sign a deal right now or get ready for the sky to fall.
There will be more bombing tonight. It'll be bigger, more powerful. Don't forget, we've knocked out all of their anti-aircraft. They don't have any anti. They have nothing. I mean, they may get lucky with a shoulder weapon or something, but for the most part, they have no defense.
Iran apparently got the message loud and clear because they moved very quickly to the negotiating table this morning. The president announced on Truth Social just a couple of hours ago, he wrote the following, quote, based on the fact that discussions with the Islamic Republic of Iran have been brought to the highest level of Iranian leadership and approved, I have, as President of the United States of America, canceled the scheduled strikes and bombings against Iran this evening. Discussions and final points have been, in both concept and great detail, approved by all parties involved. He goes on to say the naval blockade will remain in full force and effect until this transaction is finalized. Time and place of the signing to be announced shortly. Now, yesterday's love taps apparently had a profound impact. The U.S. Central Command unleashed 49 Tomahawk missiles on military and strategic targets across Iran, while American fighter jets reportedly struck roughly 20 additional sites, including one located just 40 miles from Tehran. The targets weren't random. They hit surveillance networks, communication. President Trump and Treasury.
And we got a couple of hers in tonight. Yeah, I don't know. I might just end it with the cat lady. She has a 5-minute one. You guys just came out. So we'll end it with this one.
About my experience as a delivery driver. How about they've already stopped people being able to comment, and they've already stopped people from being able to like it. I'm getting messages from you guys, and it only shows four views, and it's stopped. Okay, let me tell you what I tried to tell you. I'm going to say it in code so you guys can figure it out. Okay, I'm in Alabama. I am as you see, a delivery driver. I'm not purple. You know what color I am, right? So find me another one of these delivery drivers that looks like me, even with short hair and has a, I will show you someone who's very fatigued. I'm going to say this as nicely as I can. It's my experience. It's what I've been through. Call me what you want to call me. I don't give a fuck. Haven't we already established that we all already are? And we've also established that the other side is very much that way, okay? So let me see if I can do this where TikTok doesn't put a stop to my video like they always do. You cannot afford to tip. You don't tip. You live in an area that when I drive up, I have to keep one hand somewhere and try to drag all your meat, your Hawaiian punch, your fruit punch, and all of your ham hocks and shit up to your door. And the whole time my head is on a swivel, trying to keep from being or having my car or being dragged under a bridge somewhere and This is my experience, okay? So just the other night, I get a shopping order. I get an order to go in and shop for one item, which is mosquito spray. It's the end of the night. It's 9:30. I run in. I do it. I drive to the bad area. I get there. Lots and lots of people out in that street giving me the bad eye because why am I there? I don't belong there. Okay. So I hurry up and I run up to the door and I do what I'm supposed to do real quick and I take a picture. Mind you, they get a notification when you shop, when you're done shopping, when you're leaving the store, when you're on the way, when you arrive, then they get the picture of you, of the product, right? So I do that and I get my vehicle as fast as I can. And I get the hell out of there so I don't end up on NBC News. So today I get a call a few minutes ago, actually, from the driver company who lets me know that they said they didn't get their item. They didn't get their item. Now, the company shows your GPS. They've got a GPS on your phone. So they show that you went to the store. You scanned the item. You left the store. And it shows that you drove all the way to their house just to not leave their item. And you know what the funny thing is after you left the item at the door, took a picture, you ran back and got it, right? Anything to get it for free. So then there's another incident. So when you go up to these apartments and you're dragging all the food that you shopped, all the meat and everything, and they don't leave you not one fucking dollar, and they're living in a subsidized apartment with free power and everything was bought on an EBT card. They can't throw you $1, but when they open the door, you're like this. Because the smell of the woofs out. So you can afford that, but you can't afford to throw $1 my way. And then the whole time, I'm doing like this because I don't know if I'm going to make it back to my car alive, okay? The other night, I go to deliver. It's upstairs, always. Case of water, 2 cases of water, and a bunch of meat. So, of course, I go up the stairs, and they want to open the door, and they want you to stand there while they count the stuff to make sure you didn't take none of their stuff, even though you're the one who shopped for the order. So as I get to the door, I'm sweating and dying because I'm having to carry a case of water upstairs. She opens the door real quick, looks me up and down, and goes, I ordered 2 cases of water. Yes, ma'am, you did, I said. But I can't physically carry 2 cases of water and 600 pounds of meat up the stairs at one time. You're going to have to give me a minute to go back down the stairs and then come back up the stairs with your case of water. Am I doing it okay for you, TikTok? So then she calls and complains on me profusely, okay, to try to get the order for free. This is what happens constantly. We are so tired, and we know the areas, and we know what to expect, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do. Now, call me that name. I don't care. I don't care. We don't mean anything anymore. Y'all just abused it to the point where it don't mean anything anymore. That's my experience. So let's see if TikTok will slow this video down or put it where y'all can't comment or anything. Did I do it right for you, TikTok? Hey guys,
she just came out. I think I was the first one to hit the like button, I think. All right, I'm gonna end it with that, you guys. I want to rest up for tomorrow night. We got a lot of good stuff out today, so hopefully something will develop tomorrow afternoon. Everybody stand by when anything breaks. I'll come on, but look about five, maybe 4. Maybe 4, maybe 4 or 5, somewhere on there. So thanks, Mods, Cape, Eagle, Farrell, Lucy, and once again, Kate's new baby. Welcome to the family. And Ariella. Yep, JJ. We'll be playing Australia next Friday or next week. And God bless everybody. Oh man, where did I put my sign again? I got to find my. Yep. I lost my sign somewhere. All right, God bless everybody. Love all. Please hit the like and stay safe, stay strong, stay great, never give up. And signing off for the number 13 of June. Chico Dude. Thanks, Evan. We'll see you guys tomorrow evening unless something big happens before then. Have a good rest of the weekend.